I think the more people, the more we get out there in terms of telling people that the fundamental problem with TikTok is it's owned by ByteDance, which is then controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, which gives the Chinese Communist Party the ability to track your location, the ability to track your keystrokes, the ability to censor your news, and increasingly young Americans in particular get their news from TikTok. That's simply not a tool, that's not a weapon we want to give to our primary geopolitical competitor.
That was the incoming chairman of the House Select Committee on China, Mike Gallagher, speaking on the threat of TikTok. He was yesterday in Congress. The Senate unanimously passed a bill to ban TikTok on government devices over national security concerns. The governors of 11 states so far have already taken similar actions. Idaho, Alabama, Utah becoming the latest to ban this app just this week. Joining me right now is New York Congressman and ranking member of the House Homeland Security Committee, John Katko. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Good to see you as well.
Your thoughts on the threat of TikTok?
Well, the threat of TikTok is real, and Mike Gallagher summed it up quite well. But here's something if you want to wonder if it's just U.S. paranoia. It's not. The country of India has permanently banned TikTok in 2021 because of the concerns that are similar to what Mike just stated. They are using it as a way to access devices, and once they access the device, the Chinese government then is able to access data on that device, not just the TikTok data, and that's a really major security breach. We introduced a bill in Homeland Security to ban TikTok on all Homeland Security devices, and I know there's other legislation percolating in the Senate to do similar things government-wide.
Well, why the light touch? I mean, why not just ban it altogether, Congressman? I mean, and this is not new information, right? 2 years ago, John Ratcliffe was the director of national intelligence. He did the national security assessment, and he deemed it to be a threat. And that is why Donald Trump signed 2 executive orders into law to force the sale of TikTok either to Oracle or a U.S. company. And then Joe Biden walks into the White House and he reverses all Trump's executive orders. So why are we wasting time debating this when we already know the answer? We knew it 2 years ago.
Well, because just what you noted, the Biden administration has pushed back against that. So when we get to control of the House on January 3rd, this is one of the things we're going to pursue. And that's precisely one of the reasons why we formed the China Task Force, because the China Task Force is going to be able to expose a lot more of the nefarious actions of China. And that's what we need to do. And we're going to take action for sure.
Well, why is the administration pushing back? Is this president compromised because of all the money his family has taken in from Chinese officials?
You know, I don't know if he's compromised or not, but I can tell you what, the decision-making at the higher levels of this administration are atrocious. Just look at what's going on at the border. Same thing with China, and it's just our job, and we have control in Congress, however thin that majority might be. We got to start pushing back and pushing back hard.
Yeah, the people want answers, Congressman. We're counting on you and your colleagues, okay? California Congressman Adam Schiff, meanwhile, continues to pressure Meta, Facebook parent, to keep President Trump banned from Facebook. Trump's account set to be reinstated next month. Schiff tweeted out, and Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse tweeted out that they're sending a letter to Meta demanding that Trump is permanently suspended. Why?
Well, think about what they're doing. Politicians are asking a private entity to censor other former government officials and other Americans. That is frightening. That's what they do in third world and countries and banana republics, and we can't have that here. And there's standards that Facebook has, and standards that they are applying, and Twitter as well. And you know, Elon Musk is exposing a lot of the problems that's happened at Twitter, and quite frankly, we got to push back. And it's another thing we can do when we take control of the House on January 3rd. This is ridiculous to say when politicians are asking private entities to censor Americans. That's terrible.
Well, it is ridiculous, but now we're learning that that's exactly what has been going on, right? I mean, look, Congressman, this company, Twitter, has been parading around as if it's some kind of a digital town square where there are a lot of ideas and diverse conversation happening. But what we have learned is this company is just another cog in the wheel of the Democrat machine. Are you going to do anything about it?
They're absolutely going to do something about it. And you know, I think about what the Chinese government uses TikTok for. They decide which content is going to go viral and what's not going to. And basically, what some of these Democratic members are asking for Twitter to do the same thing, and that's just absolutely un-American, against every fabric of what we believe in. So we absolutely are going to do things about this. We got a full plate starting January 3rd, and we're going to have to really roll up our sleeves and get the work done the American people expect us to do.
Well, what about your colleagues who are pushing back on Kevin McCarthy? Are you going to be able to get the majority? Is Kevin McCarthy going to be the speaker? What about Andy Biggs?
Yeah, well, we were in a meeting with Kevin yesterday. We being a good chunk of the Republican caucus, those being what's called the Republican Governance Group, which I just stepped down from after leading it for 2 years. And it's clear to Kevin, he's in it for the long haul. It's clear to all of us, they cannot win. They do not have the numbers. And the bottom line is, as long as it takes, we're going to fight for Kevin, because there's no alternative right now, and we're going to stop this, because this is detracting us from what we need to do. We need to be united as a party, and we need to be united going forward, and we don't need this food fight before we even take control on January 3rd. We need to be united, we need to be behind Kevin, and we need to move forward together, because as we just discussed, we've got a huge agenda to execute, and Kevin's the one to help us do that.
Todd.
Congressman Todd Pyro here. You mentioned your Republican colleagues. I want to switch to your Democratic colleagues and go back to this Schiff White House story. Is there no shame among these two and among the Democrats for reading the room on this? I mean, we can't do more stories on how Twitter was compromised and tied in with the Democrats trying to suppress information, yet they're now asking Facebook to do the same thing. When you're on these in the halls of Congress having these discussions with your colleagues on the other side, aren't they worried about this?
I think they are for the most part, but I also think that there's a bit of false confidence on the Democratic side. I think they're at 51 in the Senate, and I think they think this is some huge number. It's not. And they're not in the majority. They're not going to be in the majority in the House come January 3rd. I don't think they really have figured that out yet, and have accepted that. And I think come January 3rd, they're going to be shocked, because don't forget, we control the purse strings. The Senate does not, and we're going to take those purse strings back, and we're going to legislate the right way, and we're going to make things very difficult for them with things like this if they want to get anything done and if they want to keep the lights on in government.
No, I mean, I don't know if Adam Schiff really thinks anybody believes anything he says anymore. I mean, it's been years that he's lying to the American people. Russia collusion in plain sight, Hunter Biden disinformation. I mean, honestly, does he really think people believe him?
No, I don't know about that, but I think you bring up an important point. We've got a lot of issues, like the Hunter Biden issue and the Twitter issue. We have to pursue those, but we have to keep our eye on the ball, and that's legislating. And we have to legislate and get budgets that make sense and that are fiscally sound. And we have to deal with the menace that China is. We have to deal with the menace that Russia is. We've got a lot of things to do. So we've got to stay focused, but we've also got to deal with all of these issues. And that's something they haven't done the last 2 years.
Congressman, we will be watching. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Congressman John Katko in D.C. this morning. We'll be right back.